Easily one of Aardman's most successful and long-running television series, the universally loved Shaun the Sheep will have his first feature film outing this week. The movie is directed and written by series director Richard Golly Starzak and Mark Burton. During production of the film, Skwigly got some time at Aardman to talk to Will Becher, who was lead animator alongside Laurie Sitzia, and will be carrying his experience over as director of the upcoming 5th season of the show, with the movie itself opening this week in the UK.
In the series, we're working on quite a tight deadline. It's quite organic as a process because we shoot maybe 6 to 8 seconds a day, or we try to, and that means we're solving problems, trying to create lots of visual comedy in every shot that we do. On the feature film, we had a slower approach, so we had a bit longer on the characters and trying to work out how they develop through the film. Mark and Golly, who are directing and writing the film, they spent about a year and a half before we started working on the script and trying to lock down a kind of animatic that wouldn't change too much. So normally on previous films we've had a much longer production, and anything up to about 5 years from idea through to finished film. This one is more like 2 years or a year and a half for the whole process, which is great because it keeps some of that energy that we have on the series. So the animators can work quickly, decisions get made quickly, we don't spend too long testing things, we're just trying to make it as good as it can be. There's a lot more emphasis on performance, and we have spent longer working on things like camera moves, which we normally wouldn't get to do for the series. They're just too labour intensive. But on the feature, it's got to have first of all, they're leaving the farm for the first time really, so they're going into a huge city metropolis, and that in itself was a massive challenge for the art department. It's a massively ambitious film in a way, but it also retains, I think, the charm that the series has, which is just all about kind of comedy, performance and funny looking characters. The film starts with the farm as it always is, but Shaun is bored of the mundane routine, so he hatches a plan to put the farmer out of action, to hide him away for a bit so they can have some fun. The plan backfires. The farmer ends up going into the town in a caravan. He's fast asleep, and so all the sheep have to follow him to try and get him back, and through that process he loses his memory. He becomes a different person, and so the film really is about them trying to get him back. Meanwhile, in the city there is a character who's new to Shaun called Trumper, and he is an animal containment officer. So he goes around the streets basically finding strays and putting them into his containment centre. There's no dialogue per se, there's kind of mumbling and grunting and strange noises, but there's no English language in the film. Trumper has some great kind of expressive voice and noises that he makes. He's really good fun to work with. And then again, it's slightly more freedom for the animators to go off and kind of really push the poses and get everything they can across visually, so that you feel how the characters are feeling and thinking. The nice thing is you don't have to worry too much about spending lots of time sculpting mouth shapes. We spend all the time doing expression mouth shapes, so we might spend a lot longer trying to sell a particular mood just through that shape of the mouth. So Shaun, for example, he has hard mouths. So these are a bit more like the Pirates ones in that they're hard plastic. And this is really about speed, because when you start, well, it's speed, but it's also working with black plasticine, and white plasticine is a bit of a no-no, particularly when these sheep have got such a lovely kind of white flock. So we occasionally do use plasticine mouths for the sheep, but tends to get a bit messy, and these are much quicker to kind of put on. They've got a bit more flexibility. You can move them around. They're more stylised because they are hard, so we can't get quite as much expression. But if we're struggling with a hard mouth shape to get an expression, we can just sculpt a plasticine one. And then we've got Bitzer, who has always had plasticine mouths. And this is a classic Aardman mouth set, except this one doesn't cover phonetics. So normally we'd have A, E, and I, and O, and all those things, but this is much more about shapes. Still got kind of ooh shapes and open, but we tend to talk more with these mouth shapes about kind of relaxed or happy or open happy or angry. So with him, we've got a kind of clever system that Lloyd, the head of animation, developed with model making to build a hard section inside the mouth. So we've got this kind of hard plastic for the teeth. That means we don't have to worry about resculpting them. And they also slot into place on Bitzer's head. So his top teeth and bottom teeth are hard plastic. And they all register quite nicely because of this hard resin. Sits inside the hard resin inside his head. So slide it into place, and then we just have to worry about sculpting, joining that line around the edge. It's really about keeping it as quick as possible for the animators. Quite often we'll have, in the bottom of the characters, we'll have holes which are for tie downs, so we actually use metal. The metal skeleton inside has a tie down hole that we'll drill through the set and secure from underneath. So if the character's on 4 legs like Shaun, we're literally just, we've got slightly more to work with in terms of balance, but we'll always have to tie him down so that he's rock solid when we're animating. And when you're working with rigs, it's a case of, well, this is a rig here, so it's a case of just keeping the rig out of the way of the puppet as much as possible, because it will nearly always have to be painted out in post. The shot that I've just done with this rooster involved him running along a wall, so we try and hide most of this rig behind the wall and just have a kind of clean break coming out the back. And the rig involves the same ball and sockets that we have inside the puppet, so it gives us really ultimate flexibility in how we can move it around. I think each scene, there's they're quite nice kind of different moods in the film, and I love the restaurant scene, I love the prison scene, there's some good comedy there. And we saw the crew screening recently. I think we all really enjoyed it, because it was, obviously we're nervous about how it's going to work without any dialogue, and it's a long film, but it worked pretty well.